I'm Mary Jean Murphy, and I'm coming to you from my favorite quilt store, and today I want to discuss with you quarter square triangles. And this is the block that I'm talking about. Some people call it broken dishes, but for the sake of today, we're calling it quarter square triangles. This is a project that we're working on here at my favorite quilt store, and it's coming up, so I thought maybe we'd just go over it a little bit and maybe refresh our memory of how to make them. My blocks today all need to have straight grain, not bias. If you have bias edges, it's going to distort and stretch, so we're going to avoid that. So today, my technique is making them 2 at a time. So my squares here, just for the purpose of showing as a demo, I use charm squares. So they are going to finish out at 4.5 inches. So what I have here is a 5-inch square. Actually, they're gonna finish out at 3.5 inches. Sorry. What I have here is a 5-inch square. If I need a 3.5-inch finished quarter square triangle, I'm going to need to add 1.5 inches so that I have enough to make 2 at a time and have enough for seam allowance and have just a little bit left over so that we can go ahead and square it up. And that's kind of the important part of this. You want to be able to square it up. So I started off by taking my two 5-inch squares, and I put them together, lined them up nice. First things first. I took my 5-inch squares and I took a ruler and a pencil. Make sure you always test your pencil or your writing, whatever you're going to write on your fabric with, before you go ahead and do it. You don't want it to run. So in my case, my pencil was fine, and just corner to corner, turn it, and corner to corner again. As you can see, I have a nice X. But the important part is you need to do it on both sides of, or both pieces on the back of the fabric. You can just go ahead and when you cut all your fabric, just lay them out and just go ahead and X them all. The X is a very important part, so don't skip that part. Go ahead and do both wrong sides of your fabric. Then you take this to the sewing machine. I've already done that just for ease of doing this demo. And you do a seam straight down, 1/4 inch, almost 1/4 inch from the drawn line. So I have a almost 1/4 inch seam to the left and to the right of my drawn line. Now you can see that I have nice half square triangles. Half square, and I still have straight grain. So what I want you to do is first take it to the ironing board, flip up your dark piece or whatever piece that you want to have the seam allowance pressed to, and take your iron and press it this way. And then want you to flip it over, go to the other side, finger press it, and press it this way. Just take your iron and press. All you're doing is setting that seam, and I'll show you why. Let's get this cut in half. Okay. Now, what you're doing is you're cutting directly on the drawn line. So here I have 2 perfect half square triangles. There you go. Now, the reason why we set that seam is because we set it before we cut it, so there's no distortion. You still had a lot of stabilization there, so you've got it nice and pressed. I did another one just for demonstration purposes, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that one on the drawn line. And the reason why I did that is you can put these two together with the seams opposing. There we go. And when you flip it up, you can have quarter square triangles where you have just 2 of the same fabrics. Or if you want to make it a little bit scrappy and mix it up a bit, you can mix up your half square triangles. Anyway, I'm going to show you how you do it a little bit more scrappy. Okay, so I match the corners. The corners where the drawn line is not cut, and you can see I have drawn line on each side. and then go ahead and nest that seam, and we're going to just put a pin in it just to stabilize it, just to keep it from shifting. And I can feel, if you run your fingers on this, I can feel that that seam is beautifully nested. And you're going to go ahead and draw and sew straight down here, 1/4 of an inch, just like you did the first time. And here is my little example. So I did this with 2 colors, and there you go. And I can see that I've got nice 1/4 square triangles. Look how nice that matches right there in the corner. One other trick I learned is when you're doing this second seam, when you get it all nested, sew down the side where you're jumping this seam allowance, with the seam allowance pointing away from you and going into the sewing machine first. That's because when you come down here and you hit the seam allowance underneath will actually block it from shifting. So straight down here, flip it, and you would go straight down here. And like I said, it's a 1/4 of an inch, but a little scant. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half on the drawn line. And I have from 2 5-inch squares, 2 beautiful 1/4 inch triangle blocks. Now, I'm going to take my square up, and I can tell just by looking at this that I'm going to easily get 2 3.5-inch blocks out of this. I'm going to take the other ruler. It's going to be a little less confusing. Okay. So when I do this, I'm going to make sure that my ruler lines up beautifully. Okay. And I'm going to just go ahead and trim it to the size that I want. Make sure your seams there go right into the corner of the size that you need, and that's how easy it is. 2 1/4 square triangle blocks at once. I hope you enjoyed this video. Till next time, I'm Mary Jean Murphy from My Favorite Quilt Store. Thank you.